Welcome back to the show. We are still discussing the budget, and with me, Wemo, Patrick, and Wambui. Before we went for break, we have been discussing the health part of it. Now, one of the big four agenda, which the government is heavily trying to finance in this financial year, is housing. And the government, there is, the Treasury Secretary has said that the government will contribute, the employer will contribute 0.5 and the employee will contribute 0.5. Already the employers are going to court to stop that. Yes. From a lawyer, what is your perspective on that? First of all, before you even go to that, the legal aspect of employers going to court to stop the building of housing for employees as they contribute 0.5 to their contribution while the employee contributes 0.5%.
I think we need to begin by understanding what the issue the employers have is. I don't think there is any employer in Kenya who has anything against providing housing for their employees. I don't think there is one. The issue that I find many of the employers have is an extra tax being levied for that. Because you see, already there is a number of taxes that companies have to pay out to the government in order for them to meet their tax obligations. When you add yet another tax, that is going to cut on both sides, which means the employer is going to have to pay something and the employee is going to have to pay something. What is going to be the long-term effect of that? You see, there's a situation where if your employee does not feel comfortable let me put it like this so that I can make it easily understood. When companies that make sales are passing on tax, when they have a tax to pay, they pass it on to their customer.
Yeah.
When employees have taxes, they pass it on to their employers. So you find a situation where the employer is having to pay more money on his part as the employer to the government, and the employees, because they now have a tax they are also paying, they will go back to the employer and say, the money you're paying us, it is not enough. It is not meeting my obligations. I need a raise. So the employer is finding himself in a situation where he has to pay more money to the government and more money to his employees in order to keep his organization running. And that is a unconscionable situation.
It's a business decision. Yeah. But the employer is going to court to challenge the 0.5% levied on them. Do you think also the employee can, as much as they want housing, don't you think it is and it is too much for them to pay 0.5 again from their salary when they're already paying NHIF, NSF? Can the government come with other form of arrangement to make sure this thing is possible, or even reduce mortgages and those kind of stuff?
That's true. The tax it works for and against both the employers and the employees, because for that employer who on paper he provides housing for his employees, now he's in trouble, because if the houses don't exist, now he actually has to find a way to provide housing because he's going to pay taxes for it anyway. For the employee, they're just thinking, it's just one more tax I have to pay. When you remember Eric Wainaina's song, we're just paying, it's zebra crossing tax and pay as you earn and earn as you pay. It's just one more thing they have to pay for. And if it doesn't translate into a pay rise, then you have more people who are looking for jobs elsewhere. They tell you entrepreneurship is a fantastic thing. Not everyone is going to do that. So if I don't have a job, or if I have a job that I am not happy at because it's paying me way less than I need, there is a problem.
And Wemo, there is an 11.9 billion allocated to digital literacy. I don't get it.
The beauty,
ICT, digital literacy.
The beauty is, at least this budget still has to go through Parliament to be, approved, because some of these taxes really, they're, as we keep saying, very ambitious. Because who are you offering this digital literacy program to? When our students don't, our pupils don't have the smart lab, smart education. We don't have the smart tools that were promised a few years ago. So this is really short-sighted in the sense that the government is promising to offer something that we, as a people, through experience, is unattainable. So before you offer digital literacy to someone who doesn't even have a laptop, who doesn't have a smartphone, electricity, there's this basic needs that I feel need to be aligned before we start claiming that Kenya is a smart country. We have a long way to go, and we need to sort out our house.
Yes, talking of the long way to go, apart from the 11.9, there's 310 million extra for something called digital migration. Yeah? Yet we had the class 1 laptop initiative, which was only once. Yeah. How do you connect for us the dots?
There are no dots, or there are many dots, but no way to connect them, because even I don't know of a primary school that has laptops for class 1 students. We don't. And even if we do, and that's what people kept saying, they're like, you're going to take laptops for class 1 students in Maralal. Where is the electricity coming from?
Where's the school?
There's no school to be. We are under a tree.
Is the issue.
We are under a tree on stones. Teachers.
To add on onto what she's saying, for me, it's putting the cart before the horse. You can't take laptops to the middle of a field where people are studying under a tree. First, let us ensure that everybody has desks, okay? Let's make sure that there's an actual classroom.
We have kids who are learning under tree in Turkana, maybe probably in the interior of northern Kenya, Northeastern Mandera, those places. Yet we are talking of digital migration.
That, for me, is the problem. It is just indicative of being out of touch with the reality. You need to first know that there are certain minimums that have to be met before we can begin talking about digital migration and laptops and
talking
all of that.
Being realistic and putting the horse before the cart, someone once said, and bearing the kind of looting we are seeing of late, someone once said, if in Africa, if you want to steal something, put it in the budget. What is it, are we heading there?
We were there, I think, a few years back when 10 added somewhere made the difference between
Typo
90 and 900, and we
definitely. The budget is a tricky thing, because if it manages to pass, then technically it has been provided for and you're allowed to spend that money in the way that you determined you would otherwise spend it. So the responsibility falls on Parliament to actually be the watchdog and make sure that the funds that are being approved make sense. They're the ones who are supposed to say, wait, no. The people of my constituency won't agree with this one. We must stop this one.
They don't even go to the constituency. They've never been there.
It becomes who guards the guards. If Parliament is the guard and they're the ones who are stealing, who guards the guards?
You see, talking of Parliament, and with all due respect to Parliament, we all watch what goes in Parliament, which you must have seen. How do you take of late how things happen there? And when even talking of the sugar scandal and the maize scandal, we have seen people who have been named as suspects who are coming for committee sessions, yet members of Parliament hugging them, after they leave the session. How does that interpret to the public? Do you think the House is up to the task of making sure that the budget and everything else is taken to the way it's supposed to be? Wamboi.
To give credit where credit is due, at least they're meeting. And that's a good thing. So that's a good place for them to start. However, everyone sadly, we are skeptical. We've been jaded too many times. There've been one too many scandals with no outcome. We don't see people jailed. No one is held responsible for what has gone wrong. So even as they have their committee sessions and there are different ministers for whoever is being held responsible shows up, and he has this discussion, and afterwards my grandmother sees them on the screen and they're hugging each other, and she's like, but this person stole our maize. And to her, she feels like someone needs, if you are a criminal, you go to jail. But then they hug each other, and to the average person, to them as the ones who are involved, they feel like they're doing something. They'll come and they'll tell us, but we're doing our best.
And we're talking about allocations. We should also be generating revenue. The government has increased, taxes. So one of the taxes that was increased, it has something to do with discouraging the importation of goods, so that we, especially on the issue of the manufacturing, which is an item of the Big Four agenda, for manufacturing to be realized, we have to reduce some taxation. Increase taxation to discourage the importation. But we are importing everything. Some of them even scandalous. What's your take on that?
I do believe that...
Are we just talking, or are we really, is the government...
Really, I think the government needs to take a few steps back and acknowledge and realize how much potential that common man has in terms of growing this country and reducing the debt that they've already accumulated. If you're looking at agriculture, we already have enough capacity to really empower our farmers to grow more, and we have the capacity to restart some of these industries that have been dead for a while. If you look at Kikomi in Kisumu, it's dead. Yes, this is a fully equipped, industry that could be producing textile and cotton. And you look at Mumias sugar, it doesn't exist. So I think really we need to take a few steps back and see the potential that this country owes, what we already have, so that we can grow from there. And maybe reduce this a few trillions down.
If I can add on.
Yeah. You sure you can?
I feel the government should look at itself also and look at its contribution towards achieving the targets that it has set. Yes, it has set very ambitious tax targets for KRA, which means that as citizens, we have our work cut out for us. But what is the role of the government in also ensuring that as a nation, we are able to meet these targets that we have set out? Because when we look at certain companies, we have Nestle, who closed their office in Kenya. We have Cadbury, who closed their office in Kenya. We have Johnson & Johnson, who closed their office in Kenya. These are jobs leaving the country. This is money leaving the country. This is foreign investment leaving the country. When they create an environment where we have foreign investors leaving, what does that say to foreign investors who are considering us?
And how you're talking of companies leaving Kenya, yet we are talking of manufacturing as one of the items of the Big Four agenda. Make us understand, please.
You see,
make us understand.
When we're talking about these companies leaving the country, for me that is a big blow that as a nation we have suffered. And when we're talking about, as Wemo has pointed out, we have factories that have closed down, that were producing, that were employing, that were contributing positively towards our economy. These factories have all closed down. When we're talking about manufacturing being part of the Big Four agenda, it calls the government to look at those situations and ask itself, what happened? Why did these companies fail?
Leave.
Why are we not doing anything about it? Because now we have accepted, Mumia sugar died. Okay, let us now import sugar. We are not saying no, how? Why did it die? What can we do to revive it? Because when we're talking about the strategic goals of the government, employment is one of them. They want to reduce youth unemployment. But when you're letting the companies that are here close down, what is that going to do to employment? When you're letting the multinationals that are here leave, what is that doing to employment? So you cannot say with one hand, you cannot say one thing and yet your actions are producing a totally different result.
And when he talks about the government's responsibility, it reminds me of how the average people have become, because we are so frustrated, even when national disasters happen, like for example, this very unfortunate Solai Dam incident, and we are on social media and we're raising funds for the victims and the victims' families. The Kenyans tell you, go collect my contribution from KRA offices. Yes. I pay such high taxes. Yes. The government should be able to take care of me when a national disaster happens. And it's not, the government is not able to.
Not only does it not being taken care of you, we even hardly see actions being taken.
Exactly.
So that also raises the question whether these allocations make sense and at the end of the day end up in what they're intended for. Do you think they end up in what they were intended for?
I don't know, because truly, when we're talking about a natural disaster, we can even pretend to excuse the government and say they had not foreseen, so they had not budgeted for it. But for the things that they have budgeted for, how are our roads? Kenyans wake up 5 a.m., 4 a.m. to beat traffic. Yet look at the taxes that are being paid.
Yes.
For roads.
Potholes everywhere, insecurity. There are so many things that are part of the contract between citizens and the government where the government is failing us. And we're not saying the government is doing nothing, because the government has done good initiatives. There's a lot of infrastructure work that has been done, but we're saying there's still a long way to go.
More
and
yeah, no, continue.
And because of the tax that we are paying, we do not feel like we are getting value for our money.
It doesn't translate.
Yeah,
Then we are talking over 35% of what we are earning.
Yes.
It doesn't make sense
to what we are supposed to have.
Yeah.
We're going back for a break. Keep it there. We'll be back as usual. We are also live on our social media platforms. Horizon TV on Facebook, Kenya. Horizon TV Kenya. That's Facebook. At Horizon TV on Twitter. I'm at Ahmed Qadar 1. And my producer Suleiman is there. We are going good. We'll be back.